So for Monday, January 6, 2020, I wanted to remind people of this Independence Day event that I am declaring. Me, a person in this country, am declaring this. I have obviously no authority to do so, but this event is an opportunity for all of us to hit the streets in peace and harmony and in cooperation. Hit the streets at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific time. Go to the streets, meet your neighbors, meet your friends, meet your other community members, and go to them and say, I'm ready to be a better citizen. I'm going to seek out the facts, which is the who, the what, the where, and the when. And I'm going to put aside all this party bias and politics, and I'm going to really try to help our country do a better job putting people into our government. So I've said many times that the structure of the government, the three different poles, if you will, on the triangle, the executive, the legislative, and judicial, this structure is quite good. We've had terrible people in the structure off and on, mostly all the time, actually, relative to what we could have. And so I'm advocating that we establish what I'm calling the citizen statesman. Okay, you take a pool of candidates randomly selected from across the country, a large pool, fairly large pool. Maybe every election year, maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 2,000 people. But it's a fairly large people that randomly selected initially, and then we go through a standardized screening process step by step to find the best candidates to fill the various positions in the government. And then, just like jury duty, they serve their country in the service required by the office, so House of Representatives, Senate, President, and then they go home again. And simple as that. Okay, so the Independence Day event, this coming July 4th, 2020. Get out there. I'm going to do it. I'll be out there in the streets here if I'm here in Hudson, Wisconsin, or somewhere else wherever I'm at on July the 4th, 2020. I'm going to be in the street at that time, and I'm going to be talking to people about how I pledge to them that I am going to be a better citizen. And I'm going to ask them to pledge to me that they will as well. Okay, today's show, what I want to talk about is electric cars and replacement of fossil fuel energy in our system and climate change. So just to reiterate what I've said in the past, and I'll say again, I'm sure, in future shows, climate change is a real thing. Now, how do we know this? Well, there's a couple of things that really cannot be denied. So one is that the concentration of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere is around 400 and something part per million. And this is every bit of twice what it has been for any history that we can find. So this is, we can take core samples and ice and stuff, and we can figure out how much carbon dioxide there has been in the history of this planet for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and it was pretty consistently, in this 200 part per million kind of level. And then over the course of the last 100 years, it has rapidly grown and doubled now, and it's still increasing considerably year after year now. And so that's fact number one. Fact number two is that the addition of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, well, we know that is a so-called greenhouse gas. What it means is that as there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, sun as it comes in, it's absorbed. The energy it's a greater absorber. So it comes in, it is absorbed by the carbon dioxide, and that absorption, that energy causes the atmosphere to increase in temperature. those both things are true. And the third thing that's true is that certainly the average temperature around the globe has been steadily increasing at an alarming rate. Now, the problem is most people, because this increase at alarming rate is, you're talking about like 1 or 2 degrees per year, and people say, well, that's not alarming. But you think about the mass of the Earth and the atmosphere around it. It's an incredible amount of material, and to raise the temperature of that even 1 degree on average over the course of a year, that's a lot of energy. The Earth, folks, the Earth is huge. The Earth, the water, the atmosphere around it, that's a lot of mass. It's a huge amount of mass. And to have that heating up at a degree a year or so, that is a lot. That is a tremendous amount. Okay? Now, about the electrics. So there's a lot of people, and I'm included, who think that we need to get away from fossil fuels and convert to electric mobility and use solar power and so on. And all of that is right-headed, but I found this article, and it's on a website called The Conversation, and it says, self-driving cars will not fix our transportation woes. And part of that subheading would be, will not necessarily address climate change as well as we'd like it to address it. So the article starts out with, there's this futuristic thing. Well, by that time, I don't even think you'll have a phone. You'll just kind of think it. But maybe you still have a physical device. But anyway, you're going to summons, instead of having your own car, you're going to summon an electric vehicle, and it's going to come pulling up, and it'll already be pre-programmed because you've told it where you want to go. You'll get in, and it'll take you there, and then you get out, and it'll go away and pick up somebody else and take them wherever they're going. And but what the article points out is a couple of key things. So one is, it could be, if we're not careful, that we're actually just going to increase the amount of miles traveled, because now people will travel in cars long distances that they wouldn't have traveled before. And for example, for me, I might hop in a car and program it and say, take me to see my family that's down in northern Illinois. It's a 7-hour drive. And if I could have a vehicle drive me, door to door, and along the way I could, take a nap if I wanted, or do some work, or enjoy a movie. Wow. I have to say, especially if the cost of that wasn't too much, and it's projected that the cost isn't going to be too bad at all, I would have to say I'd probably make that trip a lot more often. And so the point of the article is that we have to be careful about not just shifting the power grid over to solar and so on, and using electric vehicles. Those are, again, all positive directions, but as it says here, what we're going to end up doing is, let me get to the very end of the article here. So the key point is that autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and so on, it can help us get there, but it's going to require us to actively shape the mobility system through regulation, activism, and planning. So we're going to have to really be careful about how we go forward. Otherwise, we're not going to really have the positive impact that we're talking about. So that's going to require pushing back against interests that support dependence on private cars, and it's going to require us to reconsider our travel habits. In short, autonomous vehicles will not automatically drive us to a better transportation future. We'll have to take the wheel ourselves. In other words, we're going to have like rules and structures around this so that we don't overuse it. And the other analogy that they use in here, and so just so you have this and can appreciate it, let's say you live in a city and they decide that there's issues, and they put in a new major freeway somewhere that bypasses a bunch of traffic lights and so on. And the whole idea is that it's going to help with the traffic in the city. Well, if they're pretty good about figuring out where that goes, actually what happens is that particular new freeway gets extremely busy and has a lot of traffic jams and stuff on it, because that's what people do. If there's a better way to go, they start taking it, and we have a tendency to overuse that availability of that better way. So the last thing I want to say about climate change and the switch over to electric and so on, and getting the carbon dioxide out of our atmosphere, it's been over the course of roughly the last 100 years that a lot of this has occurred. And if we're going to fix it, even if we start switching over to cars and so on, electric cars and solar, it's going to take us decades to make that conversion. And the whole time, the carbon dioxide level is going to be going up and up and up. So in order to really affect climate change in any kind of timeline that's going to help us, we're going to have to extract carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and convert it into something where it'll stay out of the atmosphere. Now, there's new technologies that are becoming available where you can use a catalyst and not excessive temperatures and stuff, and extract the carbon dioxide from the air, use a catalyst to turn it into effectively a fuel, like a heavy oil or fuel oil or synthetic oil. And then we can start recycling. So we take, we'll still be using, over the course of 100 years, we're still going to be using a lot of petrochemical materials, and we can extract the carbon dioxide from them and put that back into fuels, and then so we end up recycling, just like we do with aluminum, for example. Instead of pulling a bunch of ore out of the ground, we recycle the aluminum cans over and over and over again, and that stops us from having streets paved with aluminum cans, and all the energy that it takes to smelt aluminum and stuff is reduced considerably. All right, so for the Pro and Con Show for Monday, January 6th, 2020, I'm Michael James Ott. Until the next show, bye for now.